Well, guys, it's that time of year in which we look back and reflect on all of the wonderful movies that made 2024. These movies that I'm going to list are movies that inspired me. They made me feel something when I left the theater. They swelled up in me emotions. And now, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Movie number 10, Sonic 3. Sonic, Knuckles, and Tails reunite to battle Shadow, a mysterious new enemy with powers unlike anything they've faced before. With their abilities outmatched, they turn to an unlikely source in order to accomplish their task. Sonic is a movie that focuses so much on creativity and imagination. The highlight of this movie, Keanu Reeves as Shadow, Jim Carrey playing not one, but two Dr. Robotniks. The movie is fun, it's energetic. I really love the momentum in this particular movie. I really enjoyed how the characters were developed. It's a story of loss, revenge, and growth. It reminded me of when I lost my brother. It stirred up in me emotions that I didn't realize were inside of me. And when I left the theater, I felt good about having watched this movie. There was an emotional impact that it had on me. And I think that audiences can connect with a movie like this because the plot and the story surrounding these emotions are all too realistic. The movie is directed by Jeff Fowler, which is awesome because he directed Sonic and Sonic 2, but he really brought it for this particular movie. It felt like Sonic's Endgame. So with a Rotten Tomatoes score of 88%, Sonic 3 was definitely it. Number 9. Piece by Piece. Lego bricks tell the life story of singer-songwriter and record producer Pharrell Williams from his childhood in Virginia to his success in the music industry and the fashion industry. The movie is directed by Morgan Neville, distributed by Universal Pictures, and what I loved about this movie in particular is that it really captures the essence of Pharrell's life through Lego blocks. Now, I was a little bit iffy about this movie because I wasn't sure as to what to expect, but I really loved how his story was captured. You have an awesome array of artists in this movie, from Snoop Dogg, Gwen Stefani, Missy Elliott, Busta Rhymes, and it really gives homage to where he came from. Sometimes artists get real bougie when they make it famous. They don't want to acknowledge their roots. But this movie really gives homage to the character, the person of Pharrell Williams. Awesome colors of arrays, great cinematic performance. Love the music in connection with this story. There's a nice original song that he wrote specifically for the movie entitled Piece by Piece, which really makes this movie fun and entertaining to watch. The movie was fun. It was energetic. It was something that you would feel connected to. For somebody who grew up through the Pharrell Williams era, I love that the songs of our time were featured in this particular movie. So Pharrell definitely brought this movie home with a score of 83% Rotten Tomatoes. It was indeed a piece-by-piece production. Number 8, Conclave. Cardinal Lawrence is tasked with one of the world's most secretive and ancient events, participating in the selection of a new pope. Surrounded by powerful religious leaders in the halls of the Vatican, he soon uncovers a trail of deep secrets that could take the very foundation of the Roman Catholic Church. The film is distributed by Focus Features and directed by Edward Berger. One thing I loved about this movie was the ensemble of cast that they chose. We're dealing with phenomenal actors such as Ralph Fiennes. There was in there Stanley Tucci and John Lithgow. The movie centers around a group of men of the Roman Catholic religion trying to make a sensible decision to elect a new pope. The movie is rated PG, which I found to be exceptional because there's no cursing, but it doesn't die down the mature audience that it's intended for. The movie keeps you suspenseful. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. It makes you think about the things that you have to do in life in order to preserve the greater good, as it were. It also focuses on a great deal of reasonableness. When I got up from the movie theater, I felt that I needed to work on my reasonableness because this movie is a great story of how no matter how much we try to prevent something, it's inevitably going to happen. The movie brings it home for the year 2024 with a score of 93% Rotten Tomatoes. And indeed, it was a beautiful thing to see. Number 7, Dune Part 2. Paul unites with the Freeman while seeking revenge against the conspirators who destroyed his family. Facing a choice between the love of his life and the fate of the universe, he must prevent a terrible future only he can foresee. It was very enjoyable watching Dune Part 2. I caught this film in Dolby Cinema. One thing I loved about this particular movie was the action sequences. There was great action sequences, phenomenal cinematography, and I really love the antagonist of this movie. Now, of course, Timothée Chalamet, he was awesome as always. Stellar performance. Really enjoyed having Rebecca Ferguson as Lady Jessica in this movie as well. But one thing that really stood out for me in this particular movie was Austin Butler. He plays a phenomenal antagonist. He kind of portrays this wicked, crazed psycho kind of antagonist. And one thing that was interesting about his character was that his motive in connection with what he was doing was solid. Having an antagonist with a strong motive does a lot for a particular movie. The movie also had some great shots of the desert. Cinematography, as was mentioned, was awesome. The film is directed by Denis Villeneuve. With a Rotten score percentage of 92%, this movie definitely brings home the aspect of self-discovery. It's a story of good versus evil, and that was something that was definitely needed in the year 2024. Number 6, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Many years after the reign of Caesar, a young ape goes on a journey that will lead him to question everything that he's been taught about the past and make choices that will define a future for apes and humans alike. The film is directed by Wes Ball and almost brought in just about $400 million to the box office. I really enjoyed the fact that this movie is built on the foundation of the other 3 films in the franchise, and that even though Caesar is long gone in this movie, there are roots of his existence being told through this story plot. I really enjoyed the actors that they selected for this particular movie. One in particular as Noah, Owen Teague, he was phenomenal as Noah. But the takeaway for me in connection with this movie was Kevin Durand as Proximus Caesar. I really loved how he brought that emotion to the character and what his vibe was in this particular movie. It can be a little bit repetitive when you're dealing with the same characters or you're dealing with the movie focusing on the same theme or the same type of plot. But in this particular movie, it's fun, it's exciting, it's adventurous, and it really brings out these characters in a more fuller sense. So with a Rotten Tomatoes score of 80%, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes was a movie that I had to catch again. Didn't watch it in the movie a second time, but definitely one I watched at home as soon as it was released on streaming. Number 5, Transformers 1. Once upon a time, Optimus Prime and Megatron were friends bonded like brothers who managed to change the fate of the Cybertron planet forever. This is their untold original story before they end up being bitter opponents. The film is directed by Josh Cooley and surprisingly released by Paramount Pictures. It grossed $130 million in the box office and is indeed a phenomenal story of brotherhood. It's a story of betrayal. It's a story of vengeance and how one person can allow emotions to get to them while the other one takes the higher road. The movie focuses on the brotherhood that Optimus Prime and Megatron enjoyed before they were enemies. It's a strong story that really gives homage to the entire franchise. Now, one thing I loved about this particular movie is that although 50% of the cast were Avengers, you didn't get that Avenger vibe. Chris Hemsworth as Optimus Prime was well and decent. Scarlett Johansson as Alita #1, I thought that was pretty cool. But really for me, what really stood out in this movie was Brian Tyree Henry as Megatron. He plays a really good Megatron in this movie. I loved his passion, his rage, great momentum in this film. I love the colors surrounding some of the action sequences. That's really important when you're trying to capture a film through animated eyes. It's a good film for kids. It's not something too graphic or too violent that you wouldn't want to take your kids to see, but it's definitely a movie that has really scored Strong Rotten Tomatoes of 89% and worth every tomato that it got. Number 4, The Fall Guy. After leaving the business 1 year earlier, battle-scarred stuntman Colt Seavers springs back into action when the star of a big studio movie suddenly disappears. As the mystery surrounding the missing actor deepens, Colt soon finds himself ensnared in a sinister plot that pushes him to the edge of a fall more dangerous than any stunt. Now, at first glance, I was like, I don't think this movie is going to be good. It looks like some stupid movie concept. Like, you know how you have those movies where it's just a movie about humor, that's only it. I didn't expect this movie to have a great message, a great plot or story, and that's exactly what I got. David Leitch was phenomenal as the director of this movie and distributed by Universal Pictures. I think it was a great year for Universal Pictures. The movie grossed $181 million worldwide, and I really loved in this particular movie, Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt. Their chemistry on screen was, dare I say, very good, a little too good. If I didn't know any better, I would think that they were lovers. But that's the kind of vibe you want to have from actors portraying this story. The film gives homage to stuntmen, people who are also overlooked but doing great things. Stuntmen in Hollywood are overlooked because they're behind the scenes, but they really make a great deal of effect on the movie. The film is directed by David Leitch. He's the director of Deadpool 2, Bullet Train, John Wick. Why didn't I see that coming when I stepped into the theater and saw, hey, this is a great movie? Never put two and two together until recently. With a Rotten Tomatoes score of 82%, I definitely would recommend you owning The Fall Guy in your personal library of movies. Number 3, The Wild Robot. Shipwrecked on a deserted island, a robot named Roz must learn to adapt to its new surroundings. Building relationships with the native animals, Roz soon develops a parental bond with an orphaned Gosling. Sounds simple enough, right? The film is directed eloquently by Chris Sanders, the director of all of the Lilo and Stitch movies and The Croods, which I have yet to see. The film was distributed also by Universal Pictures, bringing in $324 million worldwide. This movie really tugs at the heartstrings. It's a story of motherhood. It's a story of empathy, compassion. It's a story that focuses on being accepted by individuals. A robot stranded in the wild with one mission on its mind: to serve others. The movie is it's going to be the last animated work of art from DreamWorks Studios, as in later years they are now going to be focusing on outside vendors to handle most of their animation. So hopefully this does not kill the quality that we know and love from DreamWorks. As a result of this ingenuity, this movie brought home 97% Rotten Tomatoes, and indeed worth every single percentage. Number 2, Inside Out 2. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, and disgust have been running a successful operation by all accounts. However, when anxiety shows up, they aren't sure how to feel. The movie is directed by Kelsey Mann, making his feature film debut. The movie focuses on the fact that Riley is turning 13 years old, and I find this movie to be exceptionally awesome because it gives homage to persons whom are dealing with real anxieties. Inside Out 2 brings it home in 2024 with a wonderful 91% Rotten Tomatoes, and indeed, it was great and fun to watch. The number 1 movie, my favorite movie of 2024, I will have to tell you, is Wicked. Misunderstood because of her green skin, a young woman named Elphaba forges an unlikely but profound friendship with Glinda, a student with an unflinching desire for popularity. Following an encounter with the Wizard of Oz, their relationship soon reaches a crossroad as their lives begin to take very different paths. The film is directed by John M. Chu, no surprise there because he directed In the Heights, and it was again released by Universal Pictures. It grossed $586 million worldwide and brought it in with a wonderful percentage of Rotten Tomatoes, 88%. I did love the music in this movie. One of the things that made this movie so good was the fact that it's a Broadway musical. And so it's hard for a Broadway musical to be taken from the stage and put onto the screen. This movie does a wonderful job at giving homage to Broadway theater persons. It's a story of self-discovery and identity. It follows a young woman whom is ostracized by persons. If you're someone whom is different, someone whom feels as though they don't belong, whether it be in your friend circle or your family circle, this movie will leave you feeling invigorated. It was a wonderful movie. It was so good that I saw it 3 times in the theater and I cried twice. There's something about that defying gravity scene that just gets me every single time. But this movie was definitely everything that I needed personally to say, hey, 2024 had some phenomenal movies in it. So guys, that was the top 10 movies of 2024. What are your favorites? What movies made you cry this year? What movie did you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times in a movie theater? Let me know in the comment box and catch the 10 top worst movies of 2024 coming at you guys very soon.